George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we partner with Vera House throughout the month to bring you stories and activities going on during the month, but also to raise your awareness about this very important issue, especially during this time of COVID. And we're pleased to be joined by Julie Lovenberg. She is a victim advocate for Vera House, and we'll learn about what that means and how you can take advantage of those services. And of course, full disclosure, as you know, I have a very important role with Vera House engaging men in the prevention of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other forms of abuse. So, having said that, Julie, good morning. How you doing?
Morning, George.
All right. So, tell me what it means to be a victim advocate and what that entails.
Basically, it means that we're here to assist people in whatever their situation is as they're either deciding to leave an abusive relationship or trying to just figure out how to maybe shift something so that they can be a little safer. We help people through various processes like going through court processes, divorce, custody, things like that, orders of protection, safety planning, all kinds of things.
Yeah, you said all kinds of things, safety planning and things of that nature. What does that mean? And how do people actually get to a victim advocate? What is that? How do we get to you?
Yeah. Well, I guess the easiest way to kind of initiate services with us is to call our support line or come to our web chat. It's kind of the entry into services. And that's where we initially talk about kind of what's going on in your situation and present a bunch of options. So the person can, think about which way they want to go and we go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said that you call our hotline and support line. So what's that number just in case somebody wants to call that number?
Yeah, it's 315-468-3260.
I'll say, so you call that number, you tell the person on the other line what the situation is that you're facing, and then what happens?
So, like I said, we kind of want to present whatever options the person has. So, when I talk to someone on the support line, I ask them, tell me kind of what's going on. I want to get a really clear picture of what they're experiencing, and then after they've told me all of that, I kind of say, all right, based on everything that you've said, here are all of your options. And what's really important to us is that they steer the ship. So
Hmm.
it's not gonna be that they call and I tell them, "Okay, you're gonna do XYZ." It's, "Here's all these things you can do, and you let me know what you think might work, and let's start there."
What kinds of things do you hear when people call you on the hotline and support line?
Yeah, gosh, a lot of things, from just, general questions like, "I'm experiencing this thing, and I'm not really sure, is this abuse?" So we kind of have those conversations and help people understand different dynamics that they're experiencing and what that might mean. Um, we talk to people who are, um, you know, in these terrible situations, maybe just having been beaten or kicked out of a home or homeless, all kinds of things. So we kind of go from there as far as talking to them. Um, Again, it's very personal, whatever their current situation is, and then what are the options, and go from there.
A lot of people want to know if you have seen an uptick in calls and conversations during COVID 19 and whether COVID 19 has impacted the kinds of calls you receive or we receive, depending upon what hat I'm wearing. But,
Yeah.
a lot of people were concerned about that COVID would exacerbate or create even bigger problems for people who are in situations that they're negotiating whether they're going to stay or leave. And how did COVID impact that? And how did our services change?
Yeah.
How did your services change?
I think it absolutely did have a negative impact on the world and the way that people were experiencing abuse and their access to us. As far as numbers, as far as an uptick, I don't know that I can give that specifically. I do know that in the beginning, it actually slowed way down, and that was a terrible sign for us because what that basically meant is that people were home and isolated and in an abusive situation, and they had no way to contact us.
Hmm.
So they didn't have the other person going to work or their opportunity to go out and go grocery shopping or take the kids to school or just whatever kind of separation they might have had before, they were struggling to have now. And so our phone calls went down And we quickly responded to that by developing our web chat so that people could contact us online quietly because they might have had to contact us with the person present. So I think that that ended up being helpful for people, and slowly the calls started coming back. I think as things in the world started opening up, it created that separation again, which was really important.
So how does the web chat work?
Yeah, so if you go to our website at verahouse.org, there's a button right at the top. I think it's in the right corner that says chat with us. You click that button and you're taken to a page that has a little bit more information. It talks to you kind of to make sure that you understand if talking to us online is safe. You know, is your computer being monitored? Let you know that we don't have anything that's saved. So our conversations are gone as soon as we all click out of them. So it gives some of that type of information. And then you hit chat with us one more time and it initiates a chat, and there's an advocate on the other side ready to talk to you.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a service that just began as a result of. I mean, the organization had been talking about it for a while, but was able to and saw the need to really uh, get that rolling, especially during this time, especially because, uh, especially early on,
Mm.
most of us, and we probably still have very limited contact with face to face contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember about a year before all of this happened, kind of starting to help with some of that research on platforms and figuring that out. And then we kind of put on the back burner for a number of reasons. And as soon as COVID started, it was like, okay, we need this and we need it yesterday. So
So, appointment talking to Julie Lovenberg. She's a victim advocate at Vera House, and there are a number of different ways that people can get support and help. And I really want to hone in on the fact that people think that they have to have it all figured out when they call. And that's not necessarily true because people call at various stages, whether they could be in an immediate crisis and they might need shelter. Can you talk about that?
yeah. Well, I want to touch on what you kind of just said. People think
Mm-hmm.
they have to have it all figured out.
Right.
What we don't want people to think is that they don't need to call us until they're ready to leave. Leaving isn't always the answer. And I want people to know that we want to help them in whatever situation they're in,
Did,
and maybe that isn't leaving. And
I was going to say, you said leaving isn't always the answer, is what you
is
said.
not always the answer. And
Mm.
actually sometimes leaving the situation can initially be really dangerous. Sometimes there's a lot of like ducks you need to put in a row first. So yes, you don't have to be in a place where you feel completely ready. We can talk and chat and have conversations before you feel ready, and just to kind of give you options. But when people are ready to leave, like you said, we do have shelter services. And it's definitely an option that is wonderful for people who really are trying to escape something, and who are ready. We have a couple facilities that have, I want to say, right around 30-ish beds, and we're able to bring in everyone. So women, men, children, everyone. And so we're able to bring them in and connect them with a case manager who's able to help them find safety and stability. So again, they can do some of the same things that advocates do, as far as maybe this person needs an order of protection to help keep them safe, while also thinking, what is the next housing plan going to be? Where do you want to be? Is it Syracuse? Is it somewhere else? Do you have the resources you need to pay for an apartment? Like those kind of logistics are things that they can help get people reestablished.
When you mentioned the safety plan, you mentioned it a couple of times. Can you talk about what that means for people when you think about safety planning for situations that you're trying to leave or negotiate, or you're just trying to get support?
Yeah. So safety planning is again one of those things that's incredibly personal because, if Vera House had a way to come up with this one safety plan that says do this, this, and this, and everything will be great, we would have done it by now.
Hmm.
So it's very dependent on the person's personal situation. It's the resources that they have, the kind of behaviors and dynamics of whatever is happening in their relationship. So we want to look at all of these factors and think about what might we be able to shift to make you a little safer. So again, I mentioned an order of protection. Maybe it is actually going through some kind of a legal process, getting an order of protection or filing for divorce and getting out. Or maybe it's thinking about, I know that, on payday, when my partner gets paid, they go to the bar after work with their friends and they get really drunk. And unfortunately, when they get really drunk, you know, they also get really angry and we fight. So maybe on, every other Friday night, I'm going to go stay with my sister and we're going to have a girls' night because that would just be safer.
Yeah.
So if we really talk about what is this person experiencing personally, what are just little things that we can do to shift, maybe recognizing um, signs that, when you start to escalate in a relationship in a fight, does the person um, get sweaty or do they clench their fists? Like kind of noticing those things so that you guys can take a breath and step back and maybe take some separation. So safety planning looks like a lot of different things.
Would you talk about services for men? Because I know you're very careful to say whoever the caller is, but men often feel that they don't, that this is not the spot for them. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I mean, that's really challenging as an advocate at Vera House, someone who's been able to facilitate DV-Ed and has a caseload of individuals that I help.
DV Ed is what?
Oh, sorry, domestic violence education classes. I've had limited interaction with men utilizing our services, and that's just heartbreaking because domestic violence is so much about power and control, and that is not something that only men exercise, right? So the thing is, in our country specifically, and I think probably broader than that, um, men are kind of taught that it's not okay to have feelings or to be scared or to admit that they're being hurt or abused, and I think that that's a huge barrier for men to reach out because of a stigma. But we are very much open to helping everyone.
Yeah, and so the punchline there is men and people of all gender identities and expressions, gender nonconforming, gay, trans, lesbian, you name it, anyone is welcome to call. But I wanted to specifically speak to individuals who identify as male because there's this idea that, oh, that's not for me. That's only for those who identify as female. So
Mhm.
I'm glad you took a minute to talk about that. And so. Uh, and also, I wanted to go back to what you said about uh, I don't have to have it all figured out. That's why you're here because I can be helped in terms of my journey and figuring out where I need to be. Because I often find that sometimes when I've heard people who reach out to me because they know I'm associated with Vera House, they'll talk about they'll just want to talk through uh, some situations that they've gone through, and they want some support for the current situation that they've gone through. So sometimes it's not even about I'm in an abusive relationship. I just want some validation for what I'm experiencing in this moment and how I might have some strategies to get through it. Does that something that you would encourage people to consider thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a big part also of our support line is the kind of emotional support piece of that. Just someone who's there to talk to. The other part of our work, we talked about domestic violence, shelter and advocacy and all these things, but um, helping people who have been through trauma. That's a
Yeah.
huge part of what we do, whether that's sexual trauma or really kind of any trauma. I know as someone who identifies as a survivor that sometimes at night when it's quiet and I'm left with nothing else to do but think, that's when I struggle the most. So I always tell people if you're struggling, if you just need to talk to someone, that's when you pick up the phone. Like we are 100% ready to talk to you 24 hours a day. And sometimes that's what people need. So maybe it's not I'm going to figure this out or I'm going to make this phone call and somehow Vera House is going to fix it. It's more, I don't have to do this alone. So I'm going to pick up the phone and just talk to whoever answers that call because I know that they care. And that's a huge part of it. The one service I don't think that I've touched on at all is clinical. Like, we have amazing therapy services at Vera House for people that have experienced some type of sexual abuse or sexual assault. We also have domestic violence counseling for children and parents who are trying to help children who have kind of witnessed or been exposed to that type of thing. They're amazing services that can really help people process horrible things that have happened and kind of help get them to a place where they know how to cope.
What about other support services and groups that you offer and navigating through the legal system and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I'm not in the clinical department, so I know I can't name them all specifically, but again, the clinical department is wonderful and they have a lot of different groups for people that identify in different ways and survivors. I think there's like a trauma informed parenting group. So they're really wonderful. There's a lot of
But
options
these
that
are
are
groups that you
available.
would refer people to, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things that people can partake in our services. And then as you mentioned, legal. So again, advocates kind of have a hand in that as far as kind of being with you through a process, but we actually do have legal services also. So um, oftentimes we're helping people just sometimes answering, getting legal questions answered, or sometimes it's, that person who works and doesn't qualify for Hiscox legal aid, but also would really struggle financially if they had to pay a large retainer for um, representation. So sometimes we're able to get them connected, and that's wonderful.
My observation, though, Julie, is that advocates are really walking individuals through various processes. This might include going to court, it might include other issues. Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah. So again, and the advocate's job really is to sit down with you in the beginning and say, paint me a really clear picture of what you're dealing with, all the dynamics, and based on those things, here are all of your options, and then we kind of come up with a plan, a game plan, and that might be getting some ducks in a row, making sure that you have everything you need, getting you legal representation, filing court paperwork, whatever the case may be. I always tell people, I'm here to be your person. Um, and it's very because it's hard, it's really hard, it's hard enough to go through an abusive situation. It's harder to try to navigate these systems by yourself. Why not do that with someone who can help you along the way, give you the support that you need, give you the information that you need, connect you to resources, and that's our job, so to just be their person.
And we also, and you also, we see. I don't know where I'm working right now. We also have services for people who are elderly. We have an elder abuse addition. We have an elder abuse division where people can get services for people who are 50 years and older, and you have advocates for those individuals as well, and also services that for people who have, and you touched on it briefly, who are survivors of sexual trauma in some form or fashion,
Mhm.
support. Now, here's the big question, Julie: how much does this cost me?
Absolutely nothing. Yes. So we have some really wonderful ways to serve people, and our funding comes from things like the Office of Victim Services and the state, and wonderful donors who have helped us along the way. And because of all of those things, we're able to help people. It doesn't cost to call us. It doesn't cost to have an advocate or to use our legal services or clinical or come to shelter. It's really wonderful, and we're open for everyone.
You mentioned also in closing identifying as a survivor. What would you say to others who may be who may have been in a situation like yourself, and you now are able to tell your truth? What would you say to them from that lens?
Oh, as a survivor. The journey can be really long and it can be lonely. And I know that when I went through what I went through, I was a teenager and I actually spent many years kind of walking that journey alone. I didn't know about services like Vera House. In fact, I didn't live here, so there wasn't Vera House. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that it's amazing to not have to go through it alone and to understand that as the healing journey continues, sometimes it's good and sometimes it feels bad again. And it's up and down and backwards and forwards. And um, the other wonderful thing, I guess I'll plug in here, is that we also have what we call a survivors network. And it's a community of people who all identify as survivors who have been through various things. Our situations are not the same. But it's so powerful to come together with a community of people that have been through similar things to you and who really understand inside like what you're experiencing. And so that, if people feel like they're in that place where they're kind of ready to identify in that way and to be around other people and share their truth, oh, join us.
All right, Julie. People who need services from Vera House, the portal to access those services is through either the web chat or the 24-hour hotline. Let's give that number again, and let's tell people how they can access the web chat.
Yeah. So the phone number for our support line is 315-468-3260. And you can also go to our website, verahouse.org. The number's listed there in case you didn't write that down. And you can also hit the button that says chat with us, and we'll be there.
All right, and the 24-hour phone support line is available 24 hours,
Mhm.
7 days a week. Julie Lovenberg is a victim advocate from Vera House, verahouse.org. Remember that crisis and support line is 315-468-3260. And wherever you are on your journey, people like Julie are on the other side waiting to give you the support that you need. You don't have to do it alone. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, George.